العالمين وأصلي وأسلم على المبعوث رحمة للعالمين نبينا محمد عليه وعلى آله وصحبه أفضل الصلاة وأزكى التسليم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي. اللهم أجل الحق على قلوبنا وألسنتنا وارزقنا الإخلاص في كل قول وعمل. We continue inshallah Surah An-Nisa. Today verse 127. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم ويستفتونك في النساء قل الله يفتيكم فيهن وما يتلى عليكم في الكتاب في يتامى النساء اللاتي لا تؤتونهن ما كتب لهن وترغبون أن تنكحوهن والمستضعفين من الولدان وأن تقوموا لليتامى بالقسط وما تفعلوا من خير فإن الله كان به عليما. Translation: Allah says, what can be translated as that they ask you about women. Say Allah answers you about them, and so does what is recited to you from the book regarding orphaned women whom you do not give what is prescribed for them and tend to marry them or wish to marry them, and regarding the weak from the children, and that you should maintain justice for the orphans. Whatever good you do, Allah is aware of it. We'll have to pack this today, inshallah, in the time that we have a little bit more. So we start with the word yastaftunaka. Okay, this is a word that's common. Can somebody hear it? Someone asking for an opinion, for a religious opinion, or for seeking questions, having questions, and need some answers. This is called fatwa, right? You go and ask, you got a fatwa, and you just yastaftunak. And started from the get-go. One of the kind of modern mashayikh, rahimahullah, he died, Sheikh Sha'rawi, he says, subhanAllah, the word yastaftunak says multiple questions in multiple places in the Quran. You see that the companions come and ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam about questions. He said, yas'alunaka, they come and ask, or yastaftunak, they ask for reason, like for rulings or reasons behind it. And said, whereas, as a matter of fact, you see there's some narrations from Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam as well in the Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, لا تسألوا عن أشياء إن تبدأ لكم تسؤكم. And don't ask about things during the time of revelation, because if you were to ask about it, again, it might open a door for you, basically, for things, for rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not forgetful of, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives you the rulings in the right times for you. So some of them were not recommended to ask about everything and anything and everything. Yet, you can see in the Quran a lot of times there's more questions coming about this. And this is an indication, he's saying, that it's an indication for someone. If you don't have a ruling in anything, sometimes people say, I don't know anything about it, I'll just do whatever I feel like I want to do. But the fact of the matter, how the companions used to deal with the revelation of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is it? They want more. They have something that is not clear for them. Instead of just using their pure intellect, or saying, I'll do whatever I want. There's no ruling. Yet they go and what? And ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, can you tell us what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants from us in this? Which is an indication of their love for the revelation. To the extent they come and ask for more. Sometimes people say, I don't want a ruling about this. Don't tell me about that because I don't want to follow it. They go and ask for more because they love the revelation and they want to know even more. They love the guidance and they want to follow it. So when you see this word, yas'alunaka, yastaftunaka, it's a beautiful kind of gesture, rahimahullah, he made, that I felt it was something that was worth sharing with you. So they come and ask Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, yastaftunaka fi nisa. They ask you about women. They're not asking about women, particularly asking about matters related to women. Okay? They're asking about, so the word here, matters related to, is not in the verse, like it's not in the explicit words, but this is understood from the Arabic language, obviously. Yas'alunaka fi nisa'i, قُلِ اللَّهُ يَفْتِيكُمْ فِيهِنَّ. Say, O Prophet, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to show you the rulings regarding them. And it's another way of saying, you know what, you came and Ibn Ashur rahimahullah, when he mentioned that as well, he said this is kind of a way, when someone comes and asks you about something, he said, you know what, you came to the right person. You came to the expert. You know, I'll take care of you, inshallah. Right? So it's a way to what? To ease them as well into it. You see, you came and asked the question, you asked the right, like you asked Alim al-Khabir, you asked the one who knows everything, that knows, aware of everything, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah is going to show you the word. يَسْتَفْتُونَكَ قُلِ اللَّهُ يَفْتِيكُمْ فِيهِنَّ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you the fatwa. وَمَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ فِي الْكِتَابِ فِي يَتَامَى النِّسَاءِ اللَّاتِي لَا تُؤْتُونَهُنَّ مَا كُتِبَ لَهُنَّ وَتَرْغَبُونَ أَن تَنكِحُوهُنَّ. This phrase can be understood multiple ways. So the translation I chose here, which I think is, again, kind of clearer in that sense, says that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to give you fatwa about them. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to answer the question, the ruling that you want. But so does what is recited to you from the book. Meaning that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is also referencing them back to what has been recited. We started these verses, Surah An-Nisa, with a lot of ahkam about the Nisa as well, about women. We were like starting from the very beginning verses, right? Talking about yatama, talking about like the orphaned women, and talking about like what you need to give them in terms of their rights, in terms of inheritance, things like that. But even in terms of marriage, right? So the initial verses, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is kind of referencing, like I said, these verses answer the questions, but also verses were to come afterwards in the rulings that come and answer these questions that you might have as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is referring or referencing the book and saying that the clarification is going to come from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala verses as well as the verses that have been revealed before. The other part of this, وَمَا يُتْلَى عَلَيْكُمْ. So we said, يَسْتَفْتُونَكَ مِنْ النِّسَاءِ قُلِ اللَّهُ يُفْتِيكُمْ. Allah is going to answer you regarding them and instruct you basically to go and look what so does what is recited for you from the book, allows you to also know these rulings regarding orphaned women whom you do not give what is prescribed for them. In Arabic it says what? فِي يَتَامَى النِّسَاءِ الَّتِي لَا تُؤْتُوهُنَّ مَا كُتِبَ لَهُنَّ. You do not give them what is prescribed for them. This word prescribed for them is what? The Mufassirin also differed on this. They said it can be the inheritance, that which we talked about before, that before Islam, right, women would not inherit, but especially the orphaned people, orphaned women, where kind of, you can think about it as a kind of double weakness, like they're orphaned, you don't have no one to protect them, and they're women, so the society did not have a protection for them as well. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying that you would usually, before Islam, we said what? They would take their money, so they did not give them what is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala prescribed for them. So that's one, which is inheritance. But the other one, which is very close, which is in line with the rest of the verse as well, is their dowries. Meaning that you don't give them what is prescribed for them in terms of their dowries. We'll say this in a second, we'll translate this, or we'll explain this a little bit in a second. And it says, وَلَا تُؤْتُونَ مَا كُتِبَ لَهُنَّ وَتَرْغَبُونَ أَن تَنكِحُوهُنَّ. He said, you do not give them what is prescribed for them, yet you still wish to marry them. That's what translation is saying. And that's why they tied it to, we said, the dowries. You want to not give them, but you want to marry them still. As a matter of fact, the word yarghab, which is kind of you wish, you desire in the Arabic language, it comes with different prepositions. So it says, yarghabu fi nikahihinna. Yarghabu fi. If I said yarghabu fi, that means I want, I wish, I desire. Okay? And I want you, this is a little bit Arabic, so I want you to concentrate with me for a little bit because it gives a beautiful meaning, inshallah. So yarghab fi means what? Desire or want to do something. So he said, وَتَرْغَبُونَ أَن تَنكِحُوهُنَّ. The first meaning can be يَرْغَبُ فِي نِكَاحِهِنَّ, meaning that you wish to marry them, which is most of the translations that I read at least are as such. The other side is يَرْغَبُ عَنْ. So يَرْغَبْ فِي, wish and desire. يَرْغَبْ عَنْ is the opposite. It's the complete opposite. That means you do not desire, you do not wish to marry them. And the one of the narrations that came from Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha describes this or explains this beautifully. Said basically, the time of the Jahiliyyah, but what people used to do before Islam, before the rulings came, where a man would have an orphaned girl under his protection as the guardian. So her parents died, and now he got protection of her, or he has a guardianship over her. And she's either, you have two scenarios basically. One, that she might be, again, when a lot of times the orphan women, they have inheritance coming from their parents. The guardian comes and takes care of this inheritance for them, meaning what? They should protect it, they should grow it for them, should at least give them the rights afterwards. But during the time when they're still young, the guardian is taking care of this. And Sayyidah Aisha says that it used to be that these people, the guardians, used to look at this money and they used to say, "What? Okay, I wish I have this money, right? I'm taking care of the orphan woman. I mean, I should have a right in this money." So if this is a girl that they desire to marry, they wish to marry for her money, for her beauty, for her whatever it is, they used to do what? They say, "You know what? I took care of her. So when I want to marry her, I'm not going to actually give her much of a dowry. So I'm going to give her a smaller dowry." And this is, as a matter of fact, this is the first verses that we talked about. So they give her a smaller dowry than the normal that anyone else would take. That's one way. That's wishing to marry her. So he want to give her a smaller dowry to marry her and still take her money. Or the opposite, which is they do not wish to marry them. But what do they want? They want to keep the money. So what they used to do is, they used to reject anyone who wants to marry them. يَعْضُلُهُنَّ. They would keep them at home, not allow them to get married, and what? With the wish or the hope that this person, this girl, would die before them and they would inherit the money from her or take the money out of her. So in both cases, whether they want to marry them, and not give them their rights. By what? Decreasing their dowry. Right? Sharing into their money. Once you marry, I want to take some of the money. Or the opposite. They do not want to marry them. They do not wish to marry them. But they still want to keep the money. So in both cases, there is a form of injustice that is happening towards this orphaned woman, whether they want to marry them or not. By either marrying them and not giving a dowry, or not marrying them, but rejecting other people who are coming to marry them, or asking for their marriage, to be able to get the hand of their money, hoping that this orphaned woman would die, and then they would be able to inherit them. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, this is, or Sayyidah Aisha radiallahu anha is explaining this situation for us, and telling us that's what the meaning of the verses came to say, that was the situation before. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made the rulings clear. That one should be committing complete justice when this happens. If you want to marry an orphaned woman, go ahead, but you have to give her kind of top dowry, like everyone else would do. If you do not wish to marry her, you don't have right to her money. You have to give her money when she gets married. Don't keep her at home, hold her hostage so you can get her money afterwards, but let her get married from someone else. وَتَرْغَبُونَ أَن تَنْكِحُوهُنَّ. And similarly, وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الْوَلْدَانِ. Similarly to those, also the helpless children. مُسْتَضْعَفِينَ are like the weak ones, or the ones that are weakened by the society, they don't have protection. So الْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الْوِلْدَانِ. Meaning what also they are asking about the rulings regarding these. And we also know that it was the case as well, and it comes from the beginning of the first page of Surah An-Nisa, also talks about this, which is that when they give the money to those who are orphaned, or these are like young children, now males and females, when do they give them the money, right? When they become older, they become of intellect, that they can actually use their money and not just waste their money. So things along these lines came in the initial verses. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, referring them, it says, and regarding the rulings that are for al-mustada'afin and al-waldan, for the weak ones, the weak children in the society also, you need to be dealing with it with justice, because they also used to keep it from themselves, waste the money before the child grows and be able to take their money back and use it for whatever reason they want. Okay? وَالْمُسْتَضْعَفِينَ مِنَ الْوِلْدَانِ وَأَن تَقُومُوا لِلْيَتَامَى بِالْقِسْطِ, as well as standing up for the orphans' rights. So these are all different rulings that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us through other verses in the Quran and verses to come as well, and telling us that we need to be, all of us, holding on to these rulings for these matters with utmost justice that had been prescribed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and shown by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. For as وَمَا تَفْعَلُوا مِنْ خَيْرٍ فَإِنَّ اللَّهَ كَانَ بِهِ عَلِيمًا. For as anything that you've done, whatever good you do, know certainly that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is all-knowing about it. Therefore, keep that in mind when you deal with this and following the rulings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows all that we do from good and will be rewarding us accordingly. أقول قولي هذا وأستغفر الله لي